Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross. Bryan, just looking at how this hurricane continues to strengthen, it was remarkable that we saw it over the weekend achieve that extreme rapid intensification, but now that Category 5 status.
Yeah, it's the third Category 5 storm of this season. The second time in the record book that we've had three Category 5 storms in one season. And the last time was 2005. When we remember how many storms. We set a record in 2005 with 28 named storms. Three of them ended up Category 5. So this is extraordinary considering we have 13 named storms this year and three of them Category 5. Well, this was kind of well forecast to do this by a number of the computer models, including the AI models. And there you see it. And look at the circular nature of it, this sort of annular nature of it, it's called. And when storms get that kind of shape, it means that they're really kind of self-contained and they don't spin down quickly. Now, it might go through what you said was an eye wall replacement cycle, but that's not really good news. Yes, it might weaken the peak winds, but that means it would expand the size of the storm and the scope of the wind damage would increase, the width of it across the island. The only little bit of good news that we're getting out of this thing is that Jamaica's capital, Kingston, looks like it will not get the worst. It's still going to have a significant effect, and we still have all the rain and everything, but probably not the worst. All right, let's look at it. Here's the radar coming out of Kingston. This is from the Meteorological Service of Jamaica. And here you see Kingston here, and you see these rain bands that are pushing up against the mountains. Now, there are huge mountains right here. So just to the northeast of Kingston, actually, right in here. So that's kind of blocking the radar us from seeing much beyond that right now. But this moisture in this band here is feeding up into those mountains, and what goes into the mountains has to come down to the sea in some fashion through rivers and gullies and streams and so forth. So there is extreme danger in that, as you've heard about the mudslides and landslides and all the other issues that come with that incredible amount of tropical moisture heading downhill. There we can see the extremely well-developed eye. We can make out, look in here, and you see what's called a moat around the eye. See this area that might be forming around the eye? Often that's an indication that there might be an outer eye wall forming, which would weaken the storm but expand the storm, and it has plenty of time before making landfall for indeed that to happen. But an expanded storm is actually more dangerous. It is worse than having a storm a little bit weaker. All right, here's the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and they're mapping out of the winds. Now, what the yellow area tells you is that it's divided into quadrants like this. So there's the northeast quadrant. So the idea is that in this quadrant, that's as far out as the tropical storm force winds are blowing. Now, you know, they blow in bands, so in between there are places that there aren't tropical storm force winds 40 miles per hour or higher, but that's what the yellow area is telling you, that in that range, that's the extent of them. In the orangey area here, that's hurricane force gusts, and in the kind of red area hidden underneath the icon there, those are the hurricane force sustained winds. So you can see, just comparing it, all of Jamaica is going to get tropical storm force winds, but all of it, although much of it will get hurricane force gusts, and less will get those sustained incredible winds are within that orange, dark reddish area. So here we are this afternoon is the forecast, up to 165 miles per hour with the pressure down at 913, 915 millibars. You know, you got to believe that that's going to happen. The question is whether this cycle of weakening and expanding is going to happen, and when that's going to happen. That's always an open question. But I think you might be able to see that this got a little bit bigger. Everything got a little bit bigger. The idea is the storm is forecast to grow. So that's this afternoon. So we just have the gusty winds, but the heavy rain over the terrain today or by this afternoon. Then we get into tonight, and the storm moves forward, and now we're overnight tonight. When it says Tuesday a.m. there, it means nominally 2 a.m. Eastern time. That would be 1 a.m. in Jamaica. And there you see the hurricane force winds. So the strongest winds are probably right in there, and as it's approaching the coast. So now that the forecast is up into here somewhere, obviously Kingston is a bit on the fringe, but watch what happens here. Now let's go up to landfall. Forecast on the current schedule about 7 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. local time there. And there you see the extent of the hurricane force winds, hurricane force gusts right to the Kingston metropolitan area. But of course, torrential rain. This is when the most intense rain is going to fall over these mountains all at once, and then all coming downhill in some direction or the other. You see Mandeville. Mandeville is, if you take all of metropolitan Kingston as one city, there's actually 3 cities involved there. Mandeville is about the 3rd biggest city in Jamaica, and it's not at the coast, it's inland, but all along the coast here are coastal communities and beach communities and so forth. But Mandeville is going to get very hard hit, it looks like, heading up. Remember, the worst side of the storm is on this side of the storm, heading up toward Ocho Rios. Ocho Rios is right in it. And this is going to be tomorrow afternoon, mid-afternoon, that it's exiting the north coast. And on the backside, Montego Bay is going to know it, but it's going to be moving away, but not that fast. So when it moves away slowly, you even get backside storm surge. So into Montego Bay, there may very well be storm surge. Let's look at all that close up here. And here you can see. So the wind is coming this way, back here. This is a bay here. And then on this side, here you see the hurricane force gusts, even as the storm is exiting and pushing water into Kingston Harbor here. So all these harbors and bays, every one of these is going to enhance the storm surge. You have over on this side a place called Treasure Beach there, which is a real beach community that looks to be right in the way of the worst of this storm, and this corridor going up that way across the island, and then the worst of it is right in there. So in terms of how confident we are about this, we're very confident. There you see the National Hurricane Center forecast, and you see the Google forecast, and you see the European forecast. So high confidence that this is what's going to happen, that Kingston will not get the direct hit. The worst of it will be in some kind of corridor over the middle of the country like that. There you can see the various possibilities from Google, and they don't even put any possibilities right over Kingston, although we can't rule out it going off to the side of the cone, so to speak. But the odds are very high with all these models now locked in on this path across the western part of Jamaica. All right, we still have the storm surge issue, and the Hurricane Center forecasting up to 13 feet above high tide, depending on whether it comes in at high tide. Coming in at 7 in the morning, it's sort of a mid-tide situation, if that's when it comes in, and the worst is going to be in here. This is called Portland Point, if I recall right there. So, but you'll see onshore flow on all this coastline here, but especially in the bays. Every one of these bays has something going on there, and beaches and so forth, or most of them. Some of them are actually very natural, but there are beach communities in there, and they're likely to be devastated. And remember, all this time you have this incredible rain falling across this higher terrain up here. And there you see it. You see it on the model, on how much rain. You can see the path is something up in here, remember. So on that right side, those purples are up in the feet here of rain. Also, very high elevations right over in here. This is the highest elevation on the island, so that catches the water. But look, the entire island is in the 2-foot range, at least, some areas much more. So there you can see outside of Kingston, the estimates up in the 3 to 4 feet range there, and then all that water comes downhill in some fashion. The way that Kingston drains is through these gullies through the city. All right, so then once it moves past Jamaica tomorrow or Wednesday morning now, it's approaching Cuba, still as a significant hurricane, eastern part of Cuba, which is a bit mountainous. They're going to have to prepare in the central and southeastern Bahamas are now in the prep zone. That's south of Nassau. It does not include Nassau, which is the most populated part of the island, but all that and the Turks and Caicos are indeed threatened by a perhaps 100, 110 mile an hour hurricane moving in, and then it heads up toward Bermuda and in the general vicinity of Bermuda once again. I mean, they have well practiced their hurricane preparations this year. Of course, Bermuda is small. The hurricane can be a decent-sized hurricane, but still, in the overall scope of the ocean, is relatively small. So you have to be a little bit unlucky to actually get hit by the worst of it on an island like that. But they're right in the middle of the cone, so it's another crazy situation for Bermuda, guys. But the big issue here is on Jamaica and maybe in eastern Cuba. Obviously, neither place has infrastructure to deal with a direct hurricane hit. But, you know, I'm thinking back to all the hurricanes, the really off-the-chart hurricanes that we've seen. Dorian, for example, that parked over the northwestern Bahamas, parked over the Abacos and Grand Bahama. But that wasn't a mountainous place. You know, yes, they got tremendous rain, but that wasn't on the mountains where it all comes downhill. You know, we had Harvey park over Houston, but that's not a mountainous place. Right. Different kind of situation of having the water sit there like in Houston or move. You know, when the move is coming down the hill, that's a much more dangerous scenario. So this combination of incredible wind and incredible rain all in one place on a slow-moving storm. I don't remember one of these. This is, at least in my memory. The closest is actually, I do kind of remember one, Hurricane Flora in 1963, which was a larger storm, but it devastated Haiti and Haiti, Jamaica, and Cuba. As I recall, it was 60 inches of rain in Jamaica from that one. So it was the mountains just enhanced the rain like crazy.
We talk about the rain. The mountains also enhance the winds, and the Hurricane Center mentioning how some of those winds at higher elevations could be 30% stronger. So if you're talking about a 160-mile hurricane, Brian, you tack on about 40 to 50 miles an hour. So that could well be over 200 miles an hour, which is even hard to fathom. One quick question before you go. I know this weekend you talked a lot about the airport. Don't want to focus just on the airport, but from an access point standpoint, Kingston, that airport's on a barrier island.
Well, that's the only way forward with recovery.
A storm surge of 10 foot, right?
Opening.
10 to 13 foot, that could very well flood the airport.
Yeah, it could. It could, although I don't think the maximum storm surge is going to occur in Kingston, but that is a very precarious airport sitting out there on that causeway, just the causeway access. And to me, the bigger threat than the airport might be the ports. You know, because if you're really going to bring in a lot of material, you eventually need your ports to work. And, you know, the ports are obviously vulnerable, too. They're in these harbors and bays. I mean, Kingston Harbor is the harbor it is not because of the airport, because of the port. And also the way they deliver fuel into and refine fuel, that's all sitting on the coast as well there in the Kingston area. And then there's another kind of fuel delivery place over in the western part of the country where this is, you know, this thing is going to hit. So all this infrastructure is extremely precarious. And, you know, just hope that enough of it survives this, that they actually can function in some sort of reasonable way to get relief in there as soon as possible.
Big storm. Going to be some big-time problems. We appreciate you joining us sort of midway through. We're going to see you again, Bryan, at 11 o'clock Eastern with the newest advisor from the Hurricane Center. We appreciate always the insight. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Bryan Norcross.